Hi, in this video, we're going to be talking about nested conditional statements. Put this on. Okay, so going back to the example we had when we talk about just conditional statements, we have this traffic light thing that depending on whether it's red, yellow, or green, will do something differently. Now, in the case of yellow, we say slow down and maybe stop. So we don't really know what we're doing, whether we go or stop. So now, in order to figure out whether we go or stop, it depends on something, right? So that just really sounds like another conditional statement. So how do we do that? So here is the example that I sort of come up with. So let's say we have a stop distance. That's how, depending on the speed of the car and a whole lot of factors, it kind of tells us how long it takes the car to actually stop. And then we have another variable called distance to light that tells us how far the car is away from the light. And so if the stop distance is smaller than the distance to the light, that means we can stop, right? We say we stop on yellow. Otherwise, if the stop distance is if really long, that means we're not going to be able to stop before the light. So we should just keep going. Okay. So you look at this thing, well, I mean, this is something we do when traffic light is yellow. There's really nothing terribly special about this, other than the fact that it's a conditional statement inside another conditional statement, and that's what's called nested conditional statements. Okay, so that's what this slide says. One very important thing to note, that is, I mean, obviously, given that this is a conditional statement, the body of code that's inside a particular condition that is indented, right? Now, in this case, this is the second level of indentation. This would be what I consider the first level of indentation. This is the second level, right? So the second level in the indentation, the amount of indentation should be exactly the same as the first level. So in the first level, we use 4 spaces for indentation. So here, we should use another 4 spaces for a total of 8 spaces. So this is, again, in the name of readability and consistency, which is very important in writing code. Okay, so now let's see it in action. What do you think this code is going to print out? So think about it for a moment. Well, why don't we run it? Oh, well, actually, excuse me. What's in the slide is that this is red. So let's run it again. So yeah, if it's red, then this condition is true, and we just say stop. And once a single condition is true, everything else is ignored, right? We said that last time. So it prints out stop. Okay. Now, what about if I change the traffic light to yellow? And before I run it, pause for a moment, think about what you expect this thing to show. Now I'm going to run it, and it says now we stop on yellow. And how did that happen? Well, so traffic light is yellow. This is false, so we go on to the next condition. Traffic light now is yellow, so this is true. We come into this block. Okay, and the next thing that it's trying to do is, okay, is stop distance less than the distance to the light? Well, 50 is less than 60, so this condition is true. And that's why we print out stop on yellow. So, and obviously because the fact that this condition is true, we do what's inside here. We will not do we will not execute the code in other conditions. And also, because the reason that we are in here was because this condition is true, and therefore we will also ignore all the other things in the outer block of the conditional state, in the outer conditional statement. Okay. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. That's what this thing is trying to show. Okay. Well, having said all that, now nested conditional statements can be very useful. As a matter of fact, the else if can be written as a nested conditional statement. So if we go back to the original way, the original example, which I have here, right? How do we rewrite the part using, how do we rewrite the else if using nested conditionals? Well, here it literally says what else if stands for is else if, right? So we can really literally say else and put everything here. We put a conditional statement inside the else clause or the else condition that, okay, if traffic light is red, we stop. Else, if traffic light is yellow, we slow down and stop. Else, we assume it's green and we say go. Okay, so hopefully you see how that works. Let me just verify that it does. So right now the light is yellow. So we just say, yeah, yellow, it's when it slow down and maybe stop. And if I change it to red, oops, now it stop. Change it to green, we say go. So this works exactly as if when we were using elif. This is what this shows. Okay, so in that case, you might want to ask, then why do we even bother to have elif, right? Why can't we just have nested conditional statements and using only if plus else? Why complicate life? Well, there is a good reason for that. So remember this kind of a can example that I come up with in our last lecture to show how you can have multiple if in a single conditional statement. Well, so think about how you might rewrite this whole thing using nothing but if and else. So get rid of elif completely and use only nested conditional statements. How would you do that? So assuming you thought this through, you probably come up with something like that. Right? This reads, okay, if condition, then okay, if condition one is true, else if condition two is true, we say condition two, else if condition three, then condition three is true, and so on and so forth. So if you kind of read through this, it reads exactly like elif, the version using elif. But if you look at this piece of code, it looks, at least to me, it looks pretty ugly. And for two reasons, at least two reasons. First, this is we the indentation levels keeps increasing, right? We keep pushing the the body for each of the conditions um, increasingly to the right. And at some point, if you have a lot of else if, you're probably going to run out of space to even indent your code. Okay, so that's one bad thing about it. And then the other bad thing is, at some point, you're going to lose track of how many indentation levels you have for the line because it's so deeply nested. So deeply nested conditional statements are very hard to read, especially when your code gets more complicated. So the general rule is that if you have more than two, maybe sometimes even three, but I really think most of the time two levels of nested conditional is probably as far as you can go. Sometimes three. But if you go any more than that, you really should try to see if you can rearrange your logic such that you can reduce the level of nested conditional statements. Um, this will take some experiences, and you at some point in this class or in another class, you might write deeply nested conditional statements. It's okay. Practice make perfect. You just have to write a lot of code to see um, um, the problem with deeply nested conditional statements and how you might avoid it. But I just want to kind of tell you this upfront, and so hopefully you keep this in mind as you write more complicated code. Okay, so one more thing about what not to do. So here, this example just kind of says, okay, raining can be either true or false. If raining, we bring an umbrella. Now, if you notice, I actually put the condition as well as the code that we execute when the condition is true on one line. Python allows you to do this, but just like Java and C++ allows you to do this. But I consider, and I think in general, most people consider this not a very good style, and you really, really should avoid it. I mean, don't put the condition in the body of the condition on the same line. Do what we did previously. Put things on different lines. Okay. All right. I think that's the end of this video.